Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome. This is Stephen Violi from the Psychology Webinar Group. I think I might have a little bit of an echo, but that's okay. I'm not doing the talking. I'm not the expert today. So we'll just go to the next slide. That's me. But we're here to see Mr. Roger Moore. Welcome, Roger.
Well, thank you, Stephen. It's my pleasure.
How are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
That's fantastic. Good to hear. Now, what will you... actually, could you give us a little bit of a background first?
About myself, I've been a counselor in one form or another for about 40 years now, wide variety of settings, large agencies, small agencies. I've been in private practice for the last roughly 17 years. I have a master's in marriage family therapy and a doctorate from a non-accredited program in clinical hypnosis that's being recognized by local schools and hospitals. Most of the work that I do is mindfulness based, it's medical hypnosis based. I still do some traditional relationship counseling, but much of the work I do is all around stress and mindfulness.
All right. Do you want to take us into the presentation?
Sure, love to. Oh, there we go. Okay. So lots of questions come up about what is mindfulness, and the definition that I like is that it's a form of self-awareness. It's training that involves bringing attention to the present moment in a non-judgmental way. And it's not just a relaxation technique, but it's an approach to developing self-awareness and in a way of regulating thoughts and emotions and behaviors. And it contrasts to mindlessness and acting on automatic pilot. It seems like, so many people live their lives on autopilot and just being mindless. And it truly is about learning to be in the moment. It's a way of paying attention purposely and just, I like to say, being present and conscious in the body. And the purpose of mindfulness is to skillfully respond to cognitive processes that contribute to emotional anguish and maladaptive behavior. And mindfulness requires that an attitude of acceptance and non-judgment is adopted as well as curiosity, openness, and interest. So one of the things that I like to talk with people about is stress and just what is stress. And while everybody experiences stress and is dealing with stress, most people don't have a very good grasp on just what stress is. And it's difficult to define because it's a highly subjective phenomenon that differs for each of us. Things that are distressful for some might be pleasurable for others. There's people that are neat freaks that would freak out about having a whole bunch of company in the house for a long weekend and having people make a mess of the house and not put stuff where it belongs. That could be incredibly stressful. And on the other hand, if you're somebody that doesn't mind chaos and clutter, it's a time of fun. So stress can be one of those things that is just great fun and pleasure for one person. They'll find fun in it, and for somebody else, they'll find the exact same experience as stressful. And similarly, if you thrive on to-do lists and deadlines, a week with absolutely nothing to do and nowhere to go could make you crazy, whereas another person might just feel totally rejuvenated and refreshed. And of course, we each respond differently to stress, and as it can have a wide range of effects on people's emotions, mood, and even behavior. And the easiest way to understand stress is to view it as a source of any change in your world that evokes some reaction from you. And I think maybe the most important thing to remember about stress is that it's just a normal part of life, and the problem is not with stress itself. Rather, the problem lies with how much stress and how often we feel stressed, and what tools we have to do with stress or to deal with the stress. And all the mindfulness techniques, the stress reduction techniques in the world is not going to slow the world from spinning. It's not going to slow down the stressors that are hurled at us. The only thing we can do is take responsibility for how we respond to stress. And I always tell folks that, look, you have a choice. You can be caught in traffic and have delays and be running late for a meeting and show up to the meeting totally freaked out and stressed, or you can take a deep breath and relax and show up to the meeting late and relaxed. Either way, you're going to be late to the meeting. That's not going to change, but what you do have control over is how you show up, either stressed or relaxed. One of the things, as I was doing some just a little checking on Australia and stress versus the U.S., 1 in 2 Australians are experiencing a level of stress that can make them sick. And this is data from July of 2011. 93% of Australians are stressed. 48% are experiencing high levels of stress. Stress is the cause of 80 to 85% of all human illnesses and diseases here in the States. It's often considered as the #1 health problem. And stress is troublesome when the demands on your time and energy go all day long without let up. And you have a problem when you wake up tired or you have a headache first thing in the morning. And when you're in this state, you don't have a chance to relax before your body has to gear up for something else. And eventually, the tiredness and pain start to significantly drain energy that could be used for other aspects of life, and that just wears you down. And it seems like in our world today, this worn down feeling affects just way too many people. Stress is literally what makes people sick. Stress is self-generated. It's what we perceive in our mind, in our body. People waste thousands of dollars on pills and products and therapies trying to reduce stress that they themselves have created. And with all the information about stress readily available and the negative health effects of stress well known, people still constantly are feeling overwhelmed and worn out. And most people just literally haven't learned how to develop the necessary mechanisms to reach an optimal state of performance, state of mind and health, where you can handle the everyday hassles of life and put it all in perspective. And we all have struggles in our lives. I've yet to meet anybody that with a pulse that isn't struggling, and we all have our stressors. It's important that we keep in mind that it's our perception of our environment which determines whether a situation is stressful. And it's back to that example of the guests on the weekend. If you're a neatnik and you got everything rigid and in its place, having 10 people over for the weekend is probably going to totally stress you out, whereas somebody who doesn't care, and it's just going to be a big party and they're going to relax and have fun. And recognizing that we create most of our own stress is absolutely a critical first step in learning how to deal with it. Now, there's certainly different categories of stress. There's external stress that comes from physical environment, traffic, highway noise, roosters next door, social interactions, friendships, relationships, organizational things that go on within the work environment, and then, of course, life events, storms and earthquakes, as well as other events, that deaths and weddings and those types of things. Even a vacation, going on a dream vacation, can be very stressful. You got to get to the airport in time, and you got to remember to pack all your stuff, and that can be stressful. Building a new house could be your dream house, but that can be an extremely stressful event, creating that dream and getting everything lined up to make it happen. Internal stresses are lifestyle choices, the decisions that we make about how to live our lives. Self-doubt, things like I'm not good enough, I'm too old, too young, or I'm not smart enough, or whatever self-limiting beliefs that we create. Unrealistic expectations that we put on ourselves. And when we try to get too much done or think we're going to be able to accomplish things that perhaps are outside of our grasp. And then also rigid thinking, that everything has to line up in a certain way, and it has to happen in a certain time, and everything has to be absolutely perfect. And when we're stressed, there's the good things that happen, and stress actually is a good thing. We get a burst of energy. We get heightened memory function. We get a burst of increased immunity. We get lower sensitivity to pain. And, stress is things that gets us out of bed in the morning and gets us off to work and gets us to get our lawns mowed and our homes cleaned and to do those life events. There's a certain level of stress involved in that is a good thing. Back in the days when we lived in prairies and caves and jungles, and that saber-toothed tiger would start chasing us, the stress would kick in. We'd have a burst of adrenaline, and we'd take off and outrun that tiger. And we've certainly all heard stories of the little old grandma lifting the car off the baby or the little kid. Grandma had a burst of stress, a burst of adrenaline, and the strength to lift the car up. That was a great thing. The problem is when stress builds up over time. There's impaired cognitive performance. There's suppressed thyroid function. Blood sugar imbalances develop. There's decreased bone density. There's higher blood pressure. There's lower immunity and increased abdominal fat. And even slender people get this invisible fat, this increased abdominal fat that actually can be just as hard on the heart as people who have very visible fat. Another way that stress occurs, going back to the days of living in caves and prairies, we'd be sitting around the campfire at night roasting our Twinkies, and that old tiger would come up behind us, sneak up on us, and glom onto us and start eating us alive. We'd go into shock, and we'd have a fairly painless death. So either way, we either outran that tiger or we had a fairly painless death. Stress was a good thing. But the problem today is that most of us aren't literally being chased by tigers. What's happening today is that we've got our work stresses, we got our political stresses, we got our weather stresses, we got our family stresses, our relationship stresses. We have all those stresses going on. but we're driving down the road, sitting, there at the steering wheel. We're sitting in front of the tube with the remote in our hand, or we're sitting at our keyboard, and we're not literally outrunning the tiger, or we aren't literally dying because the tiger's eating us. And so when we don't burn up that stress or don't die, then the toxins, or the stress builds up over time, and it becomes very, very toxic. And our breathing becomes shallow and rapid when we're stressed. Cortisol converts to glycogen into blood sugar. Heart rate and blood pressure both increase. Digestion shuts down as blood is diverted from the stomach to the brain and skeletal muscles. Pupils dilate to sharpen the field of vision. And we end up over long term, when we aren't literally running or don't die, then we end up with excessive hair loss and baldness. We end up with neck and shoulder pain, musculoskeletal aches, lower back pain, diseases of the digestive tract, including gastritis, stomach ulcers, and irritable colon. We end up with an outbreak of skin problems such as eczema and psoriasis. Things like insomnia and headaches, irritability, anxiety and depression, oral ulcers and excessive dryness, cardiovascular disease and hypertension. And with our lungs, there's asthmatic conditions that can develop, and reproductive organs, menstrual disorders, and recurrent vaginal infections in women, as well as impotence and premature ejaculation in men, can all occur because of the long-term toxic effects of stress. Back in 1973, Canadian researcher Hans Selye showed that stress always attacks the weakest link of the body first. Now, he wasn't at all saying that stress causes cancer, or that stress causes our backs to go out, or for us to get irritable bowel syndrome, or fibromyalgia, or heart disease, or any of these things. What he's saying is that stress weakens the immune system. And with our immune system weakened, whatever the weakest link might be, then the pump is primed for us to develop cancer, or to get the head cold, or get the flu, or pneumonia, or some lung disease. So that's what happens with long-term chronic stress, is our immune system's weakened, and then we're more vulnerable to illness and disease. Stress causes physiology changes that weaken our immune system and may negatively affect our health. Now, other stressors that occur, things like medical procedures, can be very frightening. I do a lot of work with cancer patients and people that have cancer diagnoses and are going through surgery and chemo and radiation, or people that are in the process of dying as a result of cancer. But the procedures, being poked and prodded and finding out possible treatments and doing the research is all very stressful. And even if you're not normally scared of going to a doctor, having a medical procedure that is by its very nature intrusive, of course, can cause a great deal of stress and anxiety. And what most people don't understand or realize is that research has determined a connection between the amount of anxiety or fear you have going into a medical procedure and your level of pain and recovery time afterwards. So in other words, the more relaxed and optimistic you are, the more quickly you're likely to recover. And some studies have even shown that the amount of pain you feel 3 months after an operation is related to your feelings and expectations going into that medical procedure. And, it's of course, it's very natural to feel anxious or fearful about the unknown. But fears or worries unrelated to a medical procedure, such as relationship issues, financial pressures, work issues, memories of past trauma, can influence a person's outlook and often creating more tension and more stress than what's reasonable. And of course, that'll affect then how you might do during a medical procedure. So if you have a lot of relationship stress going on, or one of the things that often happens with people with illnesses such as cancer, diseases such as cancer, is they're so sick they can't work, and they may not have adequate health insurance. And so how are they going to pay their bills? How are they going to pay their rent? How are they going to put food on the table for the kids when they're laying in a hospital or at home sick in bed? How do they take care and provide for their family? That in and of itself is a huge stressor, and you put that on top of the medical issues, and the whole thing just snowballs from there. Now, pain is also another issue that gets involved here, because pain's not what you experience. Pain is a neurological signal. And suffering is the reaction that your mind has to that signal. And your reactions to the signal blend your state of mind, stress levels, as well as your beliefs and expectations. So, some people have experienced a little bit of pain, and they suffer greatly around this pain. And one of the things that I work with teaching people is how to disconnect the suffering, to notice that, okay, I may be experiencing some discomfort right now, but how much suffering I choose to put with that really does get down to a choice that I have, that I can make it terrible and awful, or I can simply acknowledge that I'm experiencing some discomfort, and I can also get on with my life and choose not to suffer over that discomfort. So using mindfulness techniques like hypnosis, you can recondition those interconnections, and doing so helps minimize the reaction to a pain signal in a way that takes unnecessary suffering out of pain. And the fastest way to do that is to release the emotional charge that is associated with the signal. So ways of taking that emotional charge out of the signal, or the pain signal, ways of letting go of stress is actually pretty much any relaxation technique that you can do. And it's certainly the mindfulness techniques, hypnosis, but a massage, for acupuncture, yoga, any form of meditation, sitting back just listening to relaxing music, or going for a walk on the beach. Any relaxation technique that will work for you is going to be beneficial. And when you do relax, you can lower your blood pressure, you can combat fatigue, you can promote sleep, you can bring down the pain, the discomfort, and you can ease muscle tension. And one of the first things I do is to teach people how to relax their muscles, because what happens is, they get into pain. They've just had surgery, or they have cancer pain, or broken bone, or whatever. The natural tendency is, because there's hurt there's a pain signal, is to tighten and tense up the muscles. And of course, the tighter the muscles get, the higher the level of discomfort. And so when we teach people how to relax their body, how to relax their muscles, the overall level of discomfort is going to come down. So one of the ways that I teach people how to relax is it's called the learning state. It's learning how to be in peripheral vision using foveal vision. So right now, just I'm going to do my best to describe this, and without you being able to see me doing this, just have your chin at a very natural and very comfortable level where you're just looking straight ahead. And look up just slightly with your eyes. Keep your chin at a normal, natural level, but just look up slightly. And just go into a bit of peripheral vision and become aware of the wall on your right and the wall on your left. And while you're looking at the wall on your right and the wall on your left, and for the moment just look straight ahead without shifting your eyes, but just bring into your awareness the wall on the right and the wall on the left. Just allow your eyes to relax. Allow your vision to begin to spread out. And just allow your awareness to spread out even more, so that it's almost like having an eye in your right ear and an eye in your left ear. And where you can see straight to your right and straight to your left. And just allow your awareness to expand even more, like having eyes in the back of your head so you can look at what's behind you. And just notice when you do that, the changes in your thoughts, the changes in emotions. Notice how your breathing slows down. And what you're using is peripheral vision with a slightly upward look. And just allowing yourself to stay in that peripheral vision. Now allow your eyes to begin to move around naturally, allow your head to begin to move around naturally, but all the while, you're in peripheral vision and you're looking up slightly. And just notice that, you know, when I start talking about stressful things, whether it's your economy or your checkbook or paying your bills or being a parent or being in a relationship or running your business or whatever the stressors there are in life, notice how when you're in peripheral vision, those thoughts just sort of float in and float out, but you really can't hang on to them. And this is a natural phenomenon. It's a phenomenon that we move in and out of throughout the day. Painters, artists, pretty much are in peripheral vision when they paint and draw or sculpt. Musicians, you know, when someone is singing a song or playing a musical instrument and the music just flows from their soul, they're in peripheral vision. Or anybody who's ever run on a treadmill or out on the road often know that for those first few minutes or the first mile on the road is often a time of suffering, and then somewhere along the line there's a switch where you just kind of drift off into a zone, and you're in that zone and the running actually becomes pretty darn easy, and you're surprised how far and you go and how fast you go when you're in the zone. Well, the difference is you went into peripheral vision. So when I am working with athletes, I teach them how to go into peripheral vision from the very beginning. I wish I would have known this years ago when I was running marathons and learning to run. You know, that first mile I suffered. And it took me a while to figure out that I didn't have to suffer the first mile. I could simply go into peripheral vision and be in the zone right away and just totally you know, make it happen without the suffering. One of the things that happens is that, you know, we're going through life, we're in peripheral vision, we're in that zone. Life's great. We have happy thoughts. We have love and joy in our heart. We have a happy spirit, and then we hit one of life's speed bumps. And our thoughts go to woe is me, ain't it awful? Emotions go to fear. And our shoulders come up and forward, our head gets down, our eyes get very, very pinpointed, very focused, heart rate, breathing, blood pressure, all those things tend to get up in the upper chest, clear up into the throat, and we're in a place of suffering. We're in a place of stress. And then at some point, our thoughts change, our emotions change, and we go back out into peripheral vision. And life's pretty darn good. Well, by learning how to use peripheral vision, as soon as you become aware that you're in that woe is me, in an awful place, very purposely, very consciously, you can get out of that very focused, pinpointed look and go into peripheral vision. And in a matter of moments, you're going to have breath. You're going to feel your body relax. You're going to hear the rushing chatter in your mind is going to slow down. And you're going to be able to focus on solutions versus being all caught up in the horror story of the woe is me story that we tell ourselves about what's going on. This is taught very purposely in lots of cultures throughout the world. It has a lot of different names. I just tend to refer to it as the learning state. It's actually one of the first things I teach students of any age, is to walk in the classroom, sit down, focus on the wall to the left, the wall to the right, and look slightly across the head of the instructor. And it's a constant shift from peripheral vision down to notes and back out. Come back in for the written or oral exam, and sit down and go back into peripheral vision and allow the information to flow from an unconscious level. And it's often worth at least 1, if not 2 grade points simply by listening in peripheral vision. And it truly is a way of being mindful, a way of being present and conscious in your body. There's not a stone look about you. There's not anything unnatural about it. It's just a very relaxed look. It's a great way to be in relationship with somebody. Your partners come home and they've had a horrible, rotten, no good for nothing day. It's just awful. And from peripheral vision, you can simply hear what they're saying, acknowledge that they had a horrible, rotten, no good for nothing day, ask if they'd like a hug, and then you can let go of it versus trying to fix it for them. Because anytime we try to fix things for our partners, that's always a fight. Or if we go to, well, you think you had a bad day, let me tell you about my bad day, that's a big discount. Or, oh, if I was a better partner, they wouldn't have had a bad day. No, your partner worked hard for the bad day. It's their bad day. Your job is to simply acknowledge they had a bad day. And when you're being mindful and using the peripheral vision is a great way to do that, you can truly just simply hear and acknowledge they had a bad day. And for anybody that does any form of public speaking, absolutely go into peripheral vision. Because when you're in peripheral vision, you're going to have breath, you're going to be calm, you're going to be relaxed. You're going to have easy recall of your words, and everybody in your audience is going to swear you're looking directly at them. And anytime you're in a meeting, whether it's in a group of people or one-on-one or in the phone or on the phone, listen from peripheral vision, and you're going to hear much more about what really is going on with people, what the real issues. Somebody may be having a meltdown about, the photocopy machine being out of photocopy paper, or the stapler being out of staples, but when you're in peripheral vision, you're going to hear that what's really going on is they had a fight with one of their kids in the morning, or they had a flat tire on the way to work, or whatever it might be. You're going to hear the real issues of what's going on in their life versus the silly things that we make it all about. Stephen, do I have control? it's not moving forward to the next slide. Stephen, are you there? Stephen, I no longer have control of the slides.
Hello, Roger, you there?
Yes, okay,
Yeah, sorry.
good. Yeah, I don't have control of
Jammed up for a
slides anymore.
second. Sorry about that. Computer jammed up.
I didn't know if you could hear me or not when I said I didn't.
No, I could hear you, but because I'd muted myself, and it was yeah, give me Harry Curry. Have you got control?
No. Do you?
No.
You can just go on to the next slide.
I do. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Keep going.
Next one.
Okay. Thank you.
That's okay. Do you want to draw some stuff on this one?
No, nothing to draw.
Okay, no worries.
So I don't know how many of you are familiar with timeline therapy or not, but this is a piece of timeline techniques. And basically what you're looking at is what you're looking down at the top of a head. That's a bird's eye view of a head. Those are two eyes, and that's a nose. Okay. And for most, or there's two classic timelines. There's left to right in front, and from behind or behind forward going through. People who are classically oriented left to right in front tend to be more task-oriented. People who have their past behind and their future in front tend to be more relationship-oriented. And of course, there's a multitude of variations on that. It could go with any direction of any one of those lines. But basically what you want to do is just think about what you did earlier today, and think about what you did over the weekend, and over Valentine's Day, and back to New Year's Day and New Year's Eve, and last Christmas and Christmas Eve, and something special you did last summer and the beginning of 2012, and think about your career and your relationships and perhaps children and college and high school and junior high, and your very, very first day of school, and in your relationship to your body. Notice in what direction those thoughts come from, and you just ask your client, or if it's yourself, just go ahead and point in the direction those thoughts come from. So perhaps it's behind you, maybe it's out in front of you to your left, or off to your left, wherever it might be. Just notice, assuming that thoughts come from outside of the body, notice where those thoughts come from and make a note of that. And then just think about the rest of this week coming up, what you got going on tomorrow and the rest of the week and the weekend coming up, and things going on in the next few months, and throughout the rest of the year, the holidays, and perhaps some vacations, and before we know it, it's going to be Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and we're going to start all over again. And think about dream vacations and retirement and your 100th birthday celebration. And just notice in relationship to your body and what direction those thoughts come from, and go ahead and point in that direction. And so just for sake of discussion, let's just assume that your past is behind you and your future is straight in front of you and is a line that runs through you. And again, it could go in any one of a multitude of directions. And just imagine with me for a moment, maybe you want to close your eyes as you do this. Imagine being able to float out of your body and out of the room you're in, and out of the building you're in, and allow yourself to just float up, going higher and higher and higher, going up so high that as you look down towards now, your entire timeline, past, present, and future, is only about 1 inch long. Going up higher and higher and higher, way up high. Just stay way up high. And when you're up there, just notice how quiet it is, how peaceful it is. Notice the joy and freedom that's available to you up here. And notice you can laugh, you can sing, you can shout, you can dance, you can do somersaults and cartwheels and backflips and handstands. Total joy, total freedom. Just notice. And staying way up high, go ahead and float around so you're looking out to the future. And again, without judgment, just see what you see. No reason to judge it, just notice. Make sure you stay way up high. And again, staying way up high, float around now so you're looking off to the past. And again, without judgment, see what you see. Notice your timeline. Is it solid? Are there missing spots, blank spots, black holes? No reason to judge, just notice. Now, staying way up high, float around so you're looking down towards now. And notice how from way up here, in the grand perspective of all universal time, past, present, and future, where your timeline's only 1 inch long, notice how from way up here, how a stressful moment of now doesn't even amount to a grain of sand on the beach of time. Just notice. Now, folks, this is your space. It's your private place. No one else can ever enter. Anytime you choose, you can return here very, very quickly, very, very simply, very, very easily, just by floating up. But for now, it's time to bring this to a close. So just go ahead and float all the way back down, all the way back down into the building, into the room, into your body. And whenever you're ready, gently open your eyelids. Now, the trick to this is being able to very quickly, like with the blink of an eye, be able to float up. And just put yourself up there and put things back in perspective. That you can be in the midst of a really upsetting conversation or event. And with a blink of an eye, float up and look down and go, oh yeah, a grain of sand, or this moment isn't even as significant as a single thread in the carpet in this room. And then float back down into your body instead of being all wrapped up in the woe is me, ain't it awful suffering part of what's going on. Focus on solutions. What do I need to do to move forward, to resolve this, to solve this, and move forward? One of the things that I love to do when I catch myself taking life too seriously, or even myself too seriously, is just pop up and get a grip on reality, and just Roger, get over yourself, and be able to float back down, take a deep breath, and just get very mindful to be present and conscious and be in my body. So this is a great technique to teach people. Next slide there, please, Stephen. Okay.
Question. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
We've got a bit of a lag there, so what I might do, when I'm talking, I'll just mute you, because that's where the feedback's coming from, and then I'll unmute you.
Okay.
How's that?
Okay, sounds good.
No worries, I'll unmute you in 1 second. Okay, now I'm by myself. I hope everyone can hear me. I'd like to thank Roger for coming along. Now, we do have one question that's been waiting there for a little while, and that is from Matthew, who asks, why in hypnotherapy is it common that you are asked to look slightly up? And to anyone else who'd like to put some questions in, now's the time to do that. And I'll just go ahead and unmute Roger again. Did you get that, Roger?
If I understood correctly, the question is why in hypnotherapy are people often asked to look up?
Slightly up, yes.
Okay. Well, several things. One is that tends to be more of an old school hypnotherapy approach. That doesn't mean it's not effective, or I'm not suggesting it's not an effective way. It just tends to be more of an old school. I tend to, in many ways, I guess, demystify hypnosis in that it's a very natural, trance is a very natural, normal phenomenon. We move in and out of it all the time. Or basically, I tend to say we're always in trance, that hypnosis is moving from one trance to another. So I purposely don't do things like that because I want people just to be able to close their eyes and relax. But again, when you look slightly up, you're bound to relax. Your body will relax. You know, the peripheral vision we were talking about earlier. And so you can do that eyes closed or eyes open. You're going to go into that relaxed state. I always tell people, nowhere in the Bible does it say, you know, look down to God. It always talks about looking up to God. And when we look up, we do just relax. It's for any swimmers out there. You know, you think of a time when you were totally stressed and you show up at the pool and you get in the water or into a hot tub, either way, hotter or colder, you alter your physiology. Your body just relaxes. And when you go into peripheral vision, you do the exact same thing. You alter your physiology and your body just simply relaxes. So that's one of the reasons why in hypnosis they learned a long time ago that a way of getting people to relax was to look up and close their eyes.
Okay. I can't see any other questions right at the moment, but I actually have one for you, Roger.
Okay, great.
And I might just put you on mute again for 1 second. Sorry about that. You're on mute now. But you actually mentioned his name before, Dr. Hans Selye. Now, I might be not pronouncing his name correctly, but I just want to read something out quickly and ask a quick question that you triggered in me before while we wait for any other questions that might want to come up. Now, this story is out of a book that I'm reading at the moment by Dale Carnegie, and it goes like this. 2 young boys were raised by an alcoholic father. As they grew older, they moved away, from that broken home, each going his own way in the world. Several years later, they happened to be interviewed separately by a psychologist who was analysing the effects of drunkenness on children in broken homes. Now, that psychologist was Dr. Hans Selye. His research revealed that the 2 men were strikingly different from each other. One was a clean-living teetotaler, the other a hopeless drunk like his father. The psychologist asked each of them why he developed the way he did, and each gave an identical answer. What else would you expect when you have a father like mine? Now, I'm going to unmute you there, Roger. Can you hear me? Did you get that?
I heard that, yes.
Yes. Now, what causes different people to interpret the same stressors so differently?
There's so many answers to that. It's like, you know, how do 2 soldiers in the same foxhole experiencing the same horrors of war, one ends up a homeless, drug-addicted person on the street, and the other one ends up being a very successful family and business person. And they went through the same horrors. And I really think it gets down to how we interpret events. And, you know, one of the stories that I always talk about with myself is that as a kid, I was about 7 or 8 years old, and my brother was 17 going on 18, about to graduate from high school, and we lived on a dairy farm. And my dad decided to sell the farm because my brother wanted nothing to do with farming, and he was going to leave Minnesota and move to California and get as far away as he possibly could. And so when I was having my fit about don't sell the farm, and my dad said, you can't do the work your brother does. And for lots of years, I lived my life from a place of not good enough and not capable. And I was probably in my 30s, which was a long time ago. And a cousin asked my dad why he sold the farm. And he kind of giggled and shook his head and said, well, said I was getting too old to do it by myself. My brother Rick, he didn't want anything to do with it. He was going off to California, and he said Roger was only 7, and 7-year-olds can't do the work of 18-year-olds. And that hit me like a 2x4 of, oh my goodness, I heard it so differently then. And it was so freeing because I had lived my life from that decision I made of I'm not good enough. And the reality was a 7-year-old can't do the work of a 17-year-old. So I really truly think it gets down to how we interpret life events. And then because we're human, we need to be right, then we get to go around through life gathering events, proving ourselves right. Say, I wasn't good enough, or I'm not capable, or I'm a drunk, or whatever it might be. So that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, it's certainly a hard one. But yeah, no, just wondering myself. Now, it doesn't look like we have any other questions at the moment, so I hope everyone got great value out of this. Thank you very much, Roger. Now, where can people find more information about you? Obviously, it's on the screen, actually.
It's there on the screen.
Yeah.
HypnosisHealthInfo.com is my website, my primary website. And there's lots of articles and information there about mindfulness and hypnosis, lots of health information. They can email me there at roger@hypnosishealthinfo.com. And you have questions, call me, email me. Happy to chat with you or go on Skype and talk more about mindfulness and how you can incorporate being mindful in your life as well as in the life of your clients.
Now, Kath says thank you to you. She's just put something up on the chat screen. And also Matthew says thank you.
And I'm not seeing anything in the chat screen, but you're welcome.
No, you wouldn't.
Oh,
you wouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you
All
wouldn't.
right. Well, thank you.
No worries. Thank you for your time again, Roger, and we look forward to doing something like this again very soon with you.
Well, I'd love to do that. My pleasure.
Yeah, I found it very, very informative. And as well as your Orange Blossom MP3, and we're getting some really good feedback on the podcast as well.
Okay, great. And just one comment on Orange Blossom. That's a great mindfulness technique. I encourage people to listen daily for at least 2 weeks, and the goal is that anytime you feel the least bit of stress or tension, anxiety, that you simply say or think Orange Blossom and bring yourself back into your body to be mindful and just allow yourself to breathe deeply and relax. Or anytime you see an orange highway cone that you relax, or an orange flower.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely works for me.
Good.
So thank you very much, Roger.
My pleasure. Thank you,
Appreciate
Stephen.
your time. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, great.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.